Hello everyone. As we head into the future, we take advantage of what is free for now, and maybe it won't be free forever, but will be reasonably priced, I would venture to guess, and that is a program called Google Sketchup. So I'm going to take the next probably maybe an hour in short 15-minute videos to show you what I have learned in terms of what it takes to go from being an Autocad draftsperson or managing Autocad, specifically Autocad 2D, to being productive very quickly in 3D and SketchUp. A lot of these rules that I'll throw out here are meant to be transferable to going to any program as well. Things like MicroStation or 3D VIA is another great one for you all to check out, which is Microsoft, and Dassault, which is SolidWorks, their engine. So you see, one thing you sometimes want to do is you want to get a consistent looking kind of interface. So let's go across the top here. Anytime you start in any program, you get some things, typically like templates, thrown at you. It's still a good idea to learn to check the units of what in the coordinate system and the assumptions on anything you do whenever you're doing it. Knowing whether you're in inch units or feet units or meter units, whether you are in a right-hand coordinate system like most things or a left-hand coordinate system when you're doing civil work. And so on this program, the units is going to be set down through some of these pull-ons here. So let me start with that. Basically, the model info is where you are setting things like, from the bottom, the units. And so in this case, I had it set to meters, so I'm going to go ahead excuse me, and set it to decimal feet. You have some precision that you can set here, and angle unit precision, so the kind of things, settings here that you might be coming back to over time. Basic text site settings, statistics, rendering. The location is actually something that's become more and more important in any kind of mapping that's tied to the Earth. AutoCAD 11 also has that in there. So usually the best way to go about getting your location is to bring it in from the interface, which we'll look at over the time here. Okay, showing you some dimension settings, credits of course, components and how you deal with components, that's how you do blocks, and specifically this animation that right away, if you're going to do nothing else, set this animation to something like perhaps maybe 5 seconds here and 0 for the scene delay. And you'll come back to that later, but you might as well set some of these things up, and later on, one of the ways we go about, if we're organized, we go about organizing drawings is very often going back to one that we know works really well and just copying over the top of it. That's a pretty standard way to do it, not just doing things in templates. That way you keep your blocks, you transfer blocks. So I'm going to hit that to 5 seconds now. So we'll talk about, that is for the basic animation that we all are capable of doing within about 5 minutes of getting the SketchUp. So I've got a lot going on my screen, so let's see what we can do to make it consistent with what you might be doing. And I'm going to go across the top here. View toolbars is where, in effect, you control what and how much stuff you have on your toolbars. Now, SketchUp 8 now allows you to put your toolbars all over the screen on a second screen, and Apple SketchUp always has allowed that. So what you want to do right away is definitely get the large tool set open, and then learn to turn things off that you don't need. So I'm going to turn off the large buttons maybe. I'll turn those back on. It looks like view toolbars. Turn on the large buttons. And the unfortunate thing with this one is it actually keeps on turning off each time. So that's kind of a drag. Probably a way here to do that with view. I'm turning lots of things off in full knowledge that you can turn them back on when you need to. So I've got a lot of sketchy Kirkuthea, which is a renderer. The great thing about Sketchup is all of the plugins. I'm going to even turn off Sketchy Physics, though I'm really not ever. I never want to turn off Sketchy Physics. So turning those off, view toolbars, and cleaning it down the screen. Perhaps when you do something like this, it's going to make it a little bit overwhelming to find what you need to go through. And so you can start to feel that you can then think about toolbars you'll need. Now the large tool set basically is that one along the left side. It generally has most things what you need for your drafting. So I would definitely keep that one up. It's got most of the basic tools. And you notice basically it's the same thing. Large tool set probably has everything pretty much you need. So learning to arrange your toolbars. This here is the view toolbar. That becomes pretty important. And learning to turn them off, click them off like that is probably worthwhile as well. All right. Now to the drafting. SketchUp does not act like Autocad, and if you try to make it to act like Autocad, you're going to be whacked. However, you're going to try to use some of the basic skills that you've learned in terms of offsetting to draft in SketchUp like you would in AutoCAD, because of this sense that a lot of engineering work is done by offsets and then tangent, tangent, radius. The problem with SketchUp is that it does not have a fillet command. However, the great thing about SketchUp is all of the rubies, and that's what we call them in SketchUp. All of the plugins are written in a code called Ruby, and it is for that reason primary that I push people into SketchUp as early as possible, because of the accessibility of this scripting language, Ruby and Python, which is so prevalent in any type of work done with graphics, whether you are working in GIS work or anything else. Ruby or a similar scripting language is something you really are going to need to get exposed to. In AutoCAD, the analogy would be Lisp, which stands for List Processing System, but also is known as lost in stupid parentheses. So that said, we also then have an ability to draw either in parallel or perspective, and this program is mostly designed to kind of draft in 3D, so we'll leave it in perspective. And then you have your basic standard views of top, bottom, front, right, left, and right, isometric, and you can click on that and it's kind of a good way to go. Now, as well, and buried in this program, is something called layers. And so you want to be very proactive, and you will be when you bring drawings in from AutoCAD, which is one of the basic things you'll want to do on a regular basis, of making and naming layers. The coloring, you can use layers for color. That's not their primary purposes. It's for visibility and control. But just for edification here, I'm going to go ahead and make a layer, and I'm going to go with my basics. And you're going to see some of the basics tools. And you're going to see there are some basic construct tools that we're going to want to do. And I'm going to make them right now whenever you're working in SketchUp. So, basic tools. That's my current layer. Like a lot of things, you can push across here. I'm right-clicking. The visibility and the color are two things that are shown with that layer. All right, current layer is set, basic tools. Something you want to do early and always is to draft. And what I've done now, I'm just going to draft the rectangle here. I'm going to draft a rectangle. I just pull across, make it whatever size I want. I'm holding my mouse down. I've pointed out in class that the cool thing about this program is it makes a golden section as soon as you get close to it. So go ahead and make the golden section. You learn key-ins very quickly. P is push. You don't have to hit the space bar. That's a beautiful thing. I'm holding my left mouse button, I'm pulling up, and I've made a basic box. Space bar is the same as the select, so you're going to use key-ins a lot in this program, like you do in Autocad, depending on how you draft. Hit a space bar, you're going to select everything, right-click, and make a group. There is no direct analogy to groups in Autocad. However, you can think of them as lesser blocks. When you group things in this program, and you need to do it a lot, as you would in AutoCAD when you're doing complex work with many different objects, when you group things, you make it easy to move them around without screwing them up. All right, a couple more things now. This program works on this rhythm, which is similar to what many of us teach in AutoCAD, and it is this. If you want to do something to something in the drawing, you build a selection set, so left click or window, find the tool you want to do and learn the key in. I think M is move, but I'm going to click on that. Find the place or the side that you want to get a plane for. Hold the shift key, and I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to move it and slide that over. So then you grab and then move the thing. All right, so that's why you have the box for the different planes. I'll show you an example of what we do now by drawing another box. Get a better idea on the modify. I'm going to draw a box, you remember. I'll make this one a square. I'm going to hit P for push. I'm going to push it up, and if you notice I jump over there, it infers the height. I'm using my left mouse button. I grab a cross, I right click, and I make a group. Now if I want to change that group, maybe perhaps rotate it up 15 degrees or so, here's how you do it. Spacebar is select, I select, I go to my tool, this time it's rotate, I find a face that describes the plane of rotation, and I hold the shift key. Holding the shift key down, I then go to my place that I want to rotate. I'm going to hit left click, move my mouse up to start an angle, and I turn it up here, and I can then key in whatever I want. 15 degrees. Again, you select your thing, select the tool, select a parallel face, hold the shift key, go to your point, left click, and then rotate up again, and I've just shifted that 15 degrees in about another axis. So that is in fact how you go about doing kind of basic rotations. The next thing that's key, so we've learned the shift key for holding a plane, the control key, or I believe it's the Alt or the Apple key on an Apple, is how we make copies. You do not want to necessarily, very often you don't want to be moving things. You're better off, if they're together, copying and then deleting. You'll see that later when we get into basic geometry work. So what I'm pointing out here is mostly designed for people who've brought in an AutoCAD drawing and have things that are hanging together as blocks. So we're assuming that you're doing things off of either Design Center in AutoCAD or off of the 3D Warehouse here in Sketchup. And so if you're going to make copies, here's how you do it. You grab your objects. You can build a selection set by holding the shift key. Same standard Windows ways, you know how. You grab the tool you want to do. In this case, we're going to do the move tool. A copy, I hit a control. One time I click on it, and now it's going to copy. As I move in a direction, I can kind of go ahead, and you'll see later in the next video how to get direct key ends, but I can get a certain direction. I can left click. And now the beautiful thing is if I want to do an array, I just say 10 times and my array is done. Do the same thing now for rotate. I'm going to grab everything. If you remember, you grab a face, hold the shift key, grab a point, hit a control, and now rotate it. I'm going to rotate it 25 degrees. And I can do the same thing there 4 times. And you see that concept of an array being quickly built. All right, that's what we got. We'll continue with this and talk about the other important things for AutoCAD drafters in the next video.